Good afternoon. Welcome to Trail Talk. I think we might be a couple of minutes after 3, but you know what? You guys were just so patiently waiting for us that I'm sure you don't mind at all. So worth the wait. We're going to make it worth the wait. I am Edie, and I am live here at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. And we have a really special guest today. This is Emily Prichard. Emily, welcome to Trail Talk.
Thank you.
I am so glad you could be here today. Emily wears many hats. She's a mom. She is an educator with Duncan Public Schools, but not the typical kind of educator. And tell us a little bit about your program that you do at the high school.
We do at the high school. So we have an internship program at our high school that is very different than a lot of programs in the state. So we, our juniors and seniors in the high school get an opportunity to go out into the community and spend an hour and a half, 4 days a week, out learning a career, of something that they think they might want to be, to pursue either a degree or a lifelong career in. So something of their interest, and there's no limits for the most part,
Right.
for that. And then we still, 1 day a week or so, we still, they're still in the classroom learning life skills and some soft skills and things like that as well.
I love that program so much. So about how many students, like last year, how many students participated in that?
So last year we had about 73 students. So on average, we have about that many, about 73 to 80 students that go through, which is about a quarter of the senior class every year.
Okay.
That either participate or as a junior or a senior in high school. Some of them choose to do it as a junior and a senior in high school too.
That's pretty amazing.
Yes.
And then about how many businesses in the community are a part of that?
It grows every year, which I
Okay.
think is wonderful. That grows as our students have interest in different things. And so I think last I checked, we're about 185 businesses that are here in the state.
I love that.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah,
Well
in
done.
Duncan, yep.
And Duncan, good job, Duncan. I love it. That is such a perfect picture of a community supporting the school.
Yes.
And just coming together and working, because I've known some of the students. We've had a couple of students actually who were interns here. But some of the other students I've known, and just the places where they were able to spend that hour and a half a day just was almost transformative in them. And I just love that kind of success.
Yeah.
So good job. Well done. That is a wonderful program. And how many years has that program been?
So this will be our, I'll have to go back and look. I'm almost positive it's our eighth or ninth year.
Oh.
Maybe our ninth year.
Wow. Wow. So that means it's here to stay.
Yes.
It is here to stay. Good job. Well, okay. So that's your day job.
Just one of them.
Just one of your day jobs, right? Because everybody knows moms are busy doing a lot of other things too. But in addition to that, you live and operate a Prichard farm.
Yes.
Okay. So before we jump onto that, I want the audience to know a little bit about you. So are you from this area, or tell me a little bit about that?
So I've grown up in the state of Oklahoma. My dad is an agronomist, retired agronomist for the Cooperative Extension Service. And so we moved around a little bit when I was younger. So, but always were involved in Oklahoma from the day that I was born. But so I have lived in Cordell, and graduated from Marlow, so from local, a local school system. But when I was younger and we lived in Ada, my parents had to pick your own farm on top of my dad working for the Cooperative Extension Service. So my mom stayed home with us and helped operate along with my dad and pick your own farm. So we had strawberries, blackberries, and pumpkins, thornless blackberries, which were wonderful.
Oh.
And we had a pumpkin patch when I was younger. So I have lots of wonderful memories of that. We moved away when I was about 8, and moved to Cordell, and my mom planted strawberries in our flower beds. So we always, every summer, would make strawberry jam and things like that. And then I also showed livestock, started showing livestock when I was involved there, and was very active in 4-H and FFA growing up. So finished high school, went to OSU, majored in agricultural leadership, wanted to be a 4-H educator.
Okay.
And did that in Grady County for 3.5 years, was a 4-H educator. And then worked in retail and some other places in between, but have come back to education. And Prichard Farm was started because we had land, and we had land that had been in our family for a long time, and it was a goal of mine to become a centennial farm.
Right.
Because my husband's family has owned our property since 1919. And we acquired a little more land, and we're able to start Prichard Farm from there.
Oh,
So-
very nice. So your husband is also he's from
He graduated from Duncan.
Duncan, okay. And so your farm is located where?
Right off of, in between, Country Club Road and Plato, so right in the middle of Duncan for the most part.
Okay, okay.
So, it's back behind, it's the railroad, it's right by the railroad, right in there.
Okay.
Yeah, we acquired 42 acres just a few years ago, so we're at about 100 acres back in there.
Back in there,
Yes.
so is it Fifth?
So,
Or-
yes, so Fifth Street in the railroad,
Uh-huh,
and then, the houses that are on, Plato and Country Club, back behind there.
right,
So to get to our house and to
Mhm.
get to where we have our farm stand and everything like that, is you go into the Clampett Oaks addition, which is right off
Mhm.
of, Country Club Road right there.
Mhm.
And then my in-laws live in one of the original homes. I think it was built in the it was built in the 1930s.
Mhm.
And it's right off of Plato. So our backyards butts up to all the acreage back in there.
Okay, and you go through, I used to live in Clampett Oaks.
Okay, so Kristen Lane
Uh-huh,
dead ends into our property right there.
okay, on the north or on the
On the
south?
south side.
On the south
Mhm.
side, interesting.
Yep.
Well, so I didn't realize that you could go out of Kristen Lane back in there. Is
So
that something you
it's-
guys have?
Yes, so
Done
we built
that,
the
okay.
home back in there, and that's where, kind of our main hub is, for the farm area. So if anybody wants to visit our farm stand that we have
Mhm.
set up, they go into Clampett Oaks addition and go
Okay.
through Kristen
And
Lane
go
to
back
get
to
there. So it's like,
Kristen.
it's kind of in the, backside of. the
Right,
property, of
right.
it too.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow, that is something.
Mhm.
Huh. I need to drive over there. I mean, we lived there for a while,
A
so.
lot of people who visit, especially those who are from Duncan, are very surprised that there's land like that in
Mhm.
that area, but they're also surprised that there's a farm back in there.
Right, well, we lived on Jacqueline, which
Mhm.
is as far east as you can go in the addition. And, it was farmland behind us.
So we own that now.
Okay.
So we have
okay.
cattle, so those neighbors,
Uh-huh.
they have cattle in their backyard, I mean, not directly in their
Right,
backyard.
well,
but-
I mean, there were wild turkey and deer and all kinds of things. We just had like a 4-foot fence on the
Mhm.
backside, excuse me, of our yard so that we could see all
Yeah.
that because I'm a country girl.
Yes.
And that made me feel like I was a little bit in the country, so, and now I know I was actually in the country. I was right next to
Our farm.
your farm, wow.
Yes.
So, that's a unique situation too, to have this
Mhm.
working farm right in the middle
Mhm.
of all of these
We're blessed.
homes and everything. I mean, that's amazing.
It is wonderful. The thing that prompted it is just the thought of that. And then we also have an 8-year-old who, we have, our values and goals and dreams and work ethic came from being involved in agriculture.
Mhm.
And so therefore we wanted him to be involved in that. And so that was a driving force.
Right.
And I think it is for a lot of people.
Mhm.
I don't think you get into farming to make money nowadays.
Not if you are being realistic and know what you're doing.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is
It takes a
Mhm.
lot of work and effort.
yes, it
And
does.
so, but a lot of things are gained from, and a lot to be said for having your family involved in something like that.
100%,
So,
for sure. Well, I bet, your in-laws love that you're taking something that has been a part of their family for such a long time, and there's a future
Mhm.
attached to it. You
Yeah.
know, that's a beautiful story, and so much, of the dreams of so many people who have lived in Oklahoma, who came to Oklahoma, who began to be as farmers here, to have that, perpetuated into the future. So I love that, Emily. What a great story.
Thank you.
That is awesome. So, when did you start with the, like the stand, the produce stand that you guys have? When did all of that start?
So right as COVID hit, I had planted my first pumpkin patch. And I harvested about 200 pumpkins. And I've always had a small garden, but I caught the bug for that, more of a market garden. And so that's prompted me getting more involved in that, and learning more about it. And so last year started working towards building a market garden. And I love the opportunity that we have to grow our own food.
Right.
And so we had a little bit extra, and so I thought I'll just make a farm stand. And had a goal of eventually kind of starting a market garden. And so that's kind of what prompted. We actually had a chicken coop that my husband built. That was not in use because we expanded our chicken coop, and I thought that would be the perfect farm stand.
Ah, there you go.
So we built that, and the door, actually I'll show a picture of it.
Okay, yeah, if you'll notice, we are looking at her Instagram back here, and so we're gonna be able to see a lot of pictures from
Here. So
okay.
the sliding barn door that's on the farm stand is
Uh-huh.
actually from the milking barn, the dairy barn that was on the property back behind my in-laws' house, which were, I think, 3 or 4 generations ago. So probably from the, I would say 30s or 40s. And so that barn door is very special.
Yes.
Because it's a historical thing for us too. So, but this little stand is about 4 by 8. And so it's not enough room, but there's a little freezer in there, that we have meat and pork in there, that anybody that wants to, it's an honor stand. So they can come and pick up some meat if they want to, some beef, and pork, and then, there's a refrigerator in there too with eggs in it and some of the produce that we need to keep cold in there. And then we have some fresh veggies in there as well, some tomatoes and zucchini and whatever's in season at that point in time.
Right. So, okay, a lot of things to unpack with that right there. I think I'll start with the veggies.
Okay.
So do you use any special practices whenever you're growing, or a buzzword is organic? Are you an organic garden, and if you are, can you kind of explain that a little bit?
So we are not organic, and the reason why we're not is because that is a term that USDA requires you to have a certification from.
Okay.
And there's certain guidelines that they require. But a lot of farms that use, sometimes they call it better than organic, or natural practices.
Right, yeah.
And so that's what I would consider us as we grow our produce naturally. What that means different things to different people.
Mhm.
Sometimes that means that, they use chemicals, but they try to use them as minimally as possible.
Mhm.
But we only use anything that's organic. So if I'm spraying for pests, I'm using it, something that's, an organic product, meaning it's not man-made.
Mhm.
Or I'm thinking about the ecosystem and how things work, and I'm planting flowers that might attract certain predatory insects that will get rid of the ones I don't want there.
Right.
And sometimes that means that I'm, letting ladybugs go because they're eating, the aphids are eating all my broccoli. That happened this year.
Yes.
And then, I'm attempting, and when you have Bermuda grass, it's hard, but I'm attempting a no-till garden too, meaning that I'm hopefully not gonna be tilling anything. There's an initial tillage that you have, and then you don't till. So things just, your soil tends to be more nutritious, and has lots of more microbes and living matter in there because you're not always constantly tilling the soil that way.
So it allows, like the earthworms and all those things to stay underground
Yes.
where they're doing their work.
Yes.
Is that,
Yes,
okay?
and the benefit too is you tend to not deal with as many weeds, not including Bermuda grass, because that's a booger within itself.
I know it's not a weed, but when it's in my flower
It is.
bed, it is a weed.
It is, it is, but, you're not tilling up, you're not turning over the soil, so you're not, exposing any more weed seeds. So
Okay.
you're not dealing with as many weeds too. So, but that is a whole different learning experience.
I bet.
And it's hard. It
Mhm.
really is hard, but that's something that we do. And then we are working towards, becoming more of a regenerative, practices. We're hoping to start, grazing our livestock, rotationally,
Mhm.
and things like that, that we can kind of take back our land that way too.
Right. So how big, like size wise, is your garden?
So I got a grant from NRCS, and we have a hoop house.
Okay.
That's 16 foot by 50 foot, and then my garden is probably about that big too. And then I have a raised bed garden that I started with.
Okay.
So, the neat thing about the way I grow things is I can plant what they call more intensively, so I'm not spacing things out as much.
Mhm.
So I'm planting my tomato plants way closer together, I'm planting green beans way closer together, so I'm producing the same amount as anybody else would, but I'm getting more produce in a smaller amount of space.
And so where did you, did you just do research, or is this a way, are some of these practices the kind you grew up using in your family?
How did I get introduced? Not
Yes.
really. I think it's something that's becoming more and more, popular. It's something I finally learned the buzzword, a market garden, which is, taking your stuff and your produce to market.
Right.
And then from there, I started learning more about no-till gardening, and natural and organic practices. It's something that I think we're beginning to, small gardeners are beginning to use more and more. And it's really interesting to me because you're learning more about the ecosystem because of it. And it's not super easy to do.
Right.
So it's a challenge that way.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. So do you, have rows? Do you plant in rows? Or do you break it up a little with a hoe? Or, I'm assuming you still have to break it up,
You
break
do.
up the soil somehow.
Yeah, so a lot of people in the very beginning, hopefully by the time that you get into this, by year, probably 4 or 5, you really don't have to do a whole lot of that because your soil has so much organic matter in it. You use lots of compost, or natural material that way. But a lot of people use a tool called a broad fork, is what it's called. And then it's kind of like a pitchfork in a way,
Okay.
but it's all steel. And then a lot of people use like a hoe or a new one that I have figured out. There's one called a saddle hoe that they use, which is it's like a or a stirrup hoe. Like a
Oh,
horse
okay.
stirrup.
Uh-huh.
And so it kind of scrapes, it takes the roots
Oh,
out that way.
okay.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So
That's
that-
probably good with the Bermuda grass.
yes, yes,
Cause I'm thinking, oh, those roots. Yeah.
they're hard.
Uh-huh.
They really are. And in Oklahoma, you really have to use some landscape fabric or carpet a long
Mhm.
time before you can try anything like that. 'cause
Mhm, to
Bermuda
kill
grass,
it off,
yeah.
right, right. Wow, that is, I mean, I'm loving all of this stuff so much. So, you mentioned, rotating your livestock.
Mhm.
I grew up on 160 acres, and then my parents, when I was much younger, they would lease land also. And so we were constantly moving cattle and doing all of those things,
Mhm.
because of how the need for a lot of different grazing areas. So, explain why, for people who may not know
No.
how that works, explain why you would need to do that.
So, and it's something that we're just beginning to consider. It's not
Mhm.
anything we have done, but research shows that rotational grazing is beneficial. A lot of people, will rotational graze and use other species, before, after, cattle get in there, or they may use them in place of. But a lot of times, rotational grazing, gives the grass or pasture an opportunity to regenerate. It allows those cattle to eat a little bit more of the things that they probably don't like as much, but also helps, with your weed problem. And which then means you don't have to spray as much, or do some of those things that way. And it keeps the grass or whatever forage you're using, to a certain height, which is beneficial to that plant. And that all depends on what kind of grass, whether it's native or Bermuda or whatever those cattle are grazing in there. A lot of people are incorporating goats in their rotation, or sheep. The Noble Foundation does a lot with sheep right now. The Langston University does a lot with goats and talking about rotational grazing. And then some use meat birds.
Oh,
As
really?
a form of that. So they have lots of tractors,
Uh-huh.
Trican tractors, which are just pins that can be moved. And they use it to kind of help. And the manure and all of that stuff is just benefiting.
Right,
that
right,
way.
that stays there.
Mhm.
We used to, we had, in addition to cattle, when I was showing sheep, we were raising sheep too. So we had, I don't know, probably went anywhere between 20 and 40 sheep. And they have to be rotated because they eat, it's very interesting if you really stop and study some of this, where sheep eat the grass down at the base next to the ground, but the cattle eat from the top down. And so you can see, I mean, if you think about that, you can see why you would have to move them around and share some of that with some other kind of animals, or they're going to eat it
And they
all.
all eat different things, like, like you said. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that is, those are things that if you're not involved or a little bit interested in agriculture, it's just very easy to just go to the store and buy what you need and not give it much of a thought, you know? And so, I think that is, those are good things for us to be talking about. So you have, you raise cattle and pigs and chickens. And you raise these all to sell the meat.
Yes, so our chickens are more for us than they are right now. But pigs, and we don't do pigs all year long, but we do raise some that and then get them processed at a USDA facility or an inspected facility so we can sell that product. And so that's something new that we have done. And then our cattle, it's the same thing. We want to have meat in our own freezer, but then we also enjoy selling our meat to others as well. And so we get that processed at an inspected facility, and then we're able to sell that, retail that. We don't do a mini right now.
Right.
But it is something that we want to expand on,
Mhm.
in the future. So, and it's nice to think that there are cattle and beef that you're feeding to your family that are grown
Mhm.
right here,
Mhm.
right in your backyard.
Right, that, yes, exactly. I, and you know what they, if they've been given, antibiotics or whatever, you know what those antibiotics are.
Yes.
If they've been treated with anything else, you know what that is, you know what they're eating and how that has been treated, and those are very important things. For, what we're consuming, all the time, so those are really important things, and people can go to the gathering, and you just have your, sign up on the wall somewhere that tells prices.
Yep. So we don't offer, right now, we don't offer, like, a lot of our local producers here in Duncan, offer halves and quarters and wholes. And we just are not at that capacity, and I don't think we ever will be. So ours are individual cuts, that we sell. And we just have a little bitty freezer in there. So, a lot of what we sell out of our little freezer, are things like ground beef and, stew meat and some things like that. And then if anybody else wants anything that's, like steaks or anything like that, we typically just, meet them and get them or deliver to them.
Right.
For things like that. But a lot of times you eat like we all eat lots of ground beef. And so it's nice to just be able to pull up and get whatever you need as far as that goes. And then go, for the week and not have to buy it in bulk if you don't want to do that.
Right, right. And pork, what kind of, cuts of pork do you?
We've sold a lot of our pork chops that have been the most popular thing. We actually have, summer sausage, jalapeno cheese summer sausage that we've been selling
I
like
think
crazy.
I saw that on one of your posts
Yes,
recently.
it's so good. And then we have snack sticks that are basically the same thing, that are the individual snack sticks that way. So, and then we have ham and some other things like that. But, we just processed a few, but we don't have a ton of those kind of cuts.
Do you make all of those? The sticks?
No,
No.
we had a local processor here.
Oh, nice.
Make those for us.
Very good. I love it. It's all local.
Yeah.
It's all local.
Yes.
And then you also have eggs.
Yes. Yeah. So I have about 25 chickens. I'm at that point where I don't know how many I
Yeah.
and so we have eggs. I like, they call them rainbow eggs, which are just chickens lay different colors of eggs. Sometimes that doesn't mean they produce a ton. There's certain types of chickens or breeds of chickens that just don't produce as much as others, but their eggs are beautiful.
There was a dozen eggs that you put a picture of.
Yeah.
And I thought, those look
They're my favorite.
great.
And nutritionally, they're no different. They're eating the same thing, but they're just really pretty.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
And
fun
they're
to look in your refrigerator and see all these beautiful colored shells and,
Exactly.
yes.
And you don't get to, you don't see that at the grocery store.
Well, yes, that is very true. That is so true. So you're doing all of these amazing things. And this year, before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, on your Instagram page, there are pictures of some silos that look like rooms. Are those?
Those are not on our property.
Okay, okay.
But those are family members of ours that they're north of Edmond, is where they're at.
Oh, really?
Yes, and they just built those. And there's a really neat story that goes along with how they've named them the Three Sisters. And on their website, the Three Sisters Cottages, they have a really neat story that goes along with it.
Well, I suggest looking at that because those are the coolest looking they're cabins.
They
They're
are.
places, I guess, like an
Airbnb.
They are great.
Yes. If
feel
anybody
like-
needs somewhere north of Edmond, that's exactly.
I just thought that those were so cool. And I was like, if she has those,
That would be neat.
But it would be,
Yeah.
it would be very cool. I thought it was a very creative way to, use the silo like that too.
Yes, Yeah,
That
they
was-
worked very hard. on those. They
Well,
really
those are really well done. Okay, so this summer,
Mhm.
you introduced our community to something called Farm Camp.
Yes.
So, talk to me a little bit about kind of your inspiration. What made you want to do something like that? And then we'll talk about it a little bit more in detail.
So, I wanted to find something to do this summer.
Because it doesn't sound like she has anything to do.
Nothing going
In all
on.
her spare time.
In all my spare time, my wheels are always turning. I tell people, what is it? You're a jack of all trades, a master of none. I'm a lot of that too. But I'm an educator at heart,
Mhm.
and I know that, and I know how much of a passion I have. And as this has grown, I continue to have more passion about that. And I also see students of ours who didn't grow up in agriculture.
Right.
And I have a background in that and a love for that. And I just wanted to combine the two of them. I also had an 8-year-old that didn't get to do a summer program that I wanted him to do this summer. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to host something like that. And so I thought, he needs this and he would enjoy this and other kids would enjoy this. And I just wanted to introduce them to agriculture. My goal is just that they walked away with a little more knowledge of where their food comes from. I think a lot of times that our kiddos have a hard time with nutrition. And it's a lot of times they don't understand how their food is grown,
Right.
or where it comes from. And so if they're growing their own food in their own backyard, it means a little bit more to them, I think.
Yes. No, I mean,
So,
I totally agree. I mean, it would take a little bit, but I mean, for kids who had nothing to eat their whole lives except something that came out of a package, they had to, pull
Yeah.
apart or rip open or whatever, versus something that was freshly picked from their garden
yeah,
and prepared. I absolutely see the benefit of
Yeah.
all of that.
it is nice.
Yes.
It's nice. Hey, Cole. Sorry, I have my 8-year-old here.
He's part of the studio audience
Text
today.
to speech right now. No telling who he's texting. So yes, that was the goal. And the cool thing about Farm Camp was and I am very much a hands-on person. So I needed them in a classroom setting in a way, just to make sure that sometimes when you're outside, you don't have their full attention.
Right, a lot of distractions.
Yes, and so, but we spent more time outside or coming in and out. And so it was just really fun to be super hands-on with them this summer.
Well, it looked like you actually had a classroom set up. You
Yes.
had a room in your house?
In my
or-
living room.
Okay.
My floors will never be the same.
Totally remodeled that room
Yes, we
for,
did.
yeah, it was great, but tables and chairs everywhere. Yeah, let's look at pictures of this. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There it is, ready for farm camp.
Yeah.
So how many students attended?
We had 14
Okay.
total. I love littles, but my age is 9 to 12, or even high school kids or middle school, older ages. So that was and when you do any sort of educational program, the more concentrated you can be with their ages, the better.
Yes.
And so that's why I chose ages 9 to 12. But we had 14. So
Was it, and so, like, what were your goals?
my goals, my ultimate goal was for them just to understand more of where they were coming from. But each day I wanted to focus on a certain thing. The first day, and I won't do this next year because it was a lot, but I'm gonna break it up a little bit more. But we were there from 9 to 3, Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And so what we did was the first day was kind of an intro and get to know you day. They learned about farm tours. So what they did is I assigned them, I actually had sticks that I pulled out with their names on it, but they got assigned a farm tour every single day. to perform. And the person who did that chore the day before taught them how to do the chore. So the first day I taught everybody how to do their chore, and they did that chore for the day. And we went home that afternoon. And then the second day, my goal was to talk about plants, and gardening. And so we talked about that. We went out to the hoop house. We talked about weeds. We talked about soil. We did a lot of hands-on fun activities. So, we, pulled out a lot of my zinnias out of the ground, the whole plant, but that was the whole point.
Right,
Because they, I wanted them to learn the parts of the plant. And so therefore, they were able to see the roots and the leaves and the whole thing all in one. So we talked about what all of those parts do for a plant. We made dirt ice cream. So we talked about sand, silt, and clay, and then organic matter and how soil particles are made up, and how all of those work together and benefit that kind of thing. And then from there, the next day, we focused on livestock. So we talked about cattle, pigs, and chickens. We talked about chicken breeds. We talked about how cattle's stomachs work and why they only eat grass. And then we talked about pigs, and what they eat. And then the next day, what did we do the next day? It was a lot of days.
Yeah, that was ambitious. I'm
Yes,
saying for
yes.
9 to 3 for
Yeah,
5 days.
It was
That's a lot.
fun. We watched a movie.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about regenerative and organic farming. And then the last day, we made a pizza. And so my dad grows, had some wheat that he had grown, and had some extra. And so we got some wheat seeds from him, wheat berries. And I have a flour mill. And so I actually let some weevils get in the wheat seeds. So we didn't eat that, but we at least made flour. And then we used a separate flour and we made pizza. So we talked about all of the ingredients in the pizza. And then we went and got some herbs from the garden and we put that in the pizza as well. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. Wow. And if this was, agribusiness or something, this would be called farm to table.
Yes,
Right?
very much so.
And what a great week. I mean, I just, as soon as I heard about that, I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds like the coolest idea.
It was fun.
So, what do you think? Did you like poll the kids or anything and ask them the things that they thought were really great?
I didn't, and I wished I had. But I know a lot of them enjoyed a lot of it. I know there'll be things I'll do different next year.
Right.
In general. But I had a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I did.
Yes,
We
I'm
did.
sure. So, the motivation for all of that, do you see that becoming any bigger? Do you think a 1 week kind of thing is gonna be it, or are there opportunities for adult education? I mean, where do you see kind of this whole, camp or thing going?
So I feel like, this will be something I'll do every summer with
Uh-huh.
kids. I do think I'm gonna split it up, in more, specific areas. So it may not be a farm camp, but it might be a gardening camp, or a livestock camp or something like those lines. We caught insects one day. So there may be an entomology camp that we do. They loved that, absolutely loved that. And so we might start an insect collection, and let them enter that in the county fair. And I used to do that when I was a 4-H educator, and I loved it. I also I have a hope and dream, and it may be a year or two before I do that, but to do some adult education classes, maybe a sewing workshop where, whoever wants to come go home with an apron that we've made. And I purchased some meat chickens for farm camp. And so we are going to have to process meat chickens pretty soon.
Right.
And so that might be another adult education opportunity where we have a class over processing meat chicken. So something like
Okay.
that. I have a passion for that kind of thing.
Right. Well,
So-
I love how you've allowed the two things, you know, the farm and your passion for educating people to come together.
Mhm.
Because, yeah, I mean, it's the perfect fit for you. And so everything that you're doing it's kind of coming naturally, and your farm is providing, I mean, you just named off about 4 different kinds of camps.
Yeah.
To things that could happen.
Mhm.
You know, the possibilities are really there for this to be something really grand, I think. So, meat chickens, tell us what's the difference between a meat chicken and a non-meat
So non-meat chicken.
chicken?
So meat chickens are typically a crossbred between multiple, and they're very crossbred to the point you typically can't, if you tried to crossbreed on your own, it would be kind of complicated. I
Mm.
learned that the other day.
Uh,
But there's different, breeds of meat chickens, but a lot of them, a lot of people grow, which is what we have, are raised as a Cornish cross.
mhm.
But they're crossbred and they're raised to just grow very quickly and very big and to eat a
Mhm.
lot.
Mhm.
And so typically when you purchase a meat chicken, you can process it, well, you need to process it within about 3 months.
Oh, that is
So
fast.
they're very quick. Yes, very, very fast.
Mhm.
And they don't need a whole lot of room, but they're crossbred to grow just like that, just like our cattle and pigs and all that are
Mhm,
crossbred to do
mhm.
certain things. And then our laying hens are purposely bred to lay eggs, so they're typically ones that will produce more eggs, which are 1 to 2 eggs per day.
Mhm.
And so that's how they're different.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And you said that you raise red Angus.
Red Angus,
Okay, and so our red Angus, is that a pure breed?
yes,
Okay.
yes, when our herd is registered.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people in Oklahoma are choosing, red Angus cattle just because they can handle the heat a little bit, easier than, other breeds do. Some of them are typically smaller framed.
Okay.
So as far as us grazing, we are grazing, like our capacity that we can have them is higher,
Mm-hmm.
but their body size is a lot smaller too.
Mhm.
So, there's a happy medium with all of that.
Right. And I was talking to someone who
Mm-hmm.
has, I don't know if they still have them or not, miniature Hereford, Abigail Billingsley. And she mentioned how many, how many of those cattle could graze on an acre.
Or
And
10 acres, yeah.
right, and I thought, okay, so I never really thought about that. I mean, we have 160 acres, that's a lot for the cattle. So anyway, especially if you're looking to break areas down and all of that sort of thing. So is red Angus meat special in any way?
I don't know tons about whether
About
it
that,
truly
okay.
is research wise. I hear people say that. I've never seen like research studies, which I haven't probably looked at research studies to see that. But a lot of it depends on how they're finished, too,
Right.
what they're fed when they're finished. A lot of people are choosing the grass feed cattle, or finish them grass feed. That's not something we do. We grass, they still are grass fed, but they're grain finished, so they get
Okay.
grain, they get grain throughout the winter anyways.
Right.
But we grain finish them the last 5 months,
Okay.
so
Okay.
typically.
Well, I mean, probably your average consumer wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah.
That, what they're getting, what kind of cattle, this steak or this, but yeah, what did this come from? But I was curious, but practically speaking, for your situation, this is the breed that fits best.
Yeah.
And so I like point to kind of talk about these things because I think that maybe if you're not familiar with it, you don't really consider the fact that a farmer thinks about a lot of different things and sometimes all at once about what they're going to feed their cattle and how, what breed they're going to raise and just all of those kinds of things.
Well, there's new technologies for cattle that are out there. I attended a boot camp, OSU, Oklahoma State put on a cattle women's boot camp right as we were getting cattle. And I learned so much from it and made some wonderful connections. But one of the things, I was introduced to many things there, but one of the things I learned is they now have pregnancy tests that you can take with you on site. So typically when you want a pregnancy test a cow, you have to take a blood sample and mail it off. But now they have them, they're like a COVID test is what they are. But things like that, I mean, there's just so many new things that come out all the time that being, especially being in contact with your extension office and any university that's near you that can help you research and find out what their new research is about that breed or about just the industry in general is so beneficial and staying up to date with that.
Right. Right. Well, show us a few more pictures of your farm. So just to give us some fun looks at some of the things that you guys.
So this is back behind me, the hoop house that we built. It is what we call caterpillar tunnel. So all it is literally metal hoops that are like top rail that you use for a fence that are bent into, and then it's just plastic that's over the top of it. But it allows you to plant like your tomatoes and things like a month or so earlier. And then when the freeze hit, you've got a little bit more time that you can savor them.
Right.
That
you
way
get a
too.
little bit of a greenhouse effect with that.
Yes,
Okay.
you do.
Very nice.
It's not a full-fledged, like, can grow anything through the winter, but I just got in some new hats the other day.
Oh, fun.
I have a sweet friend that made me those. But this is a group of kiddos that came. I had more boys than girls, but we had almost an even number.
Oh, that's good.
So we enjoyed our time. This is
There we
making
go.
pizza. That was making pizza.
Fun.
They were eating, they each brought their lunch, every single day, and then we added things from the garden that they could have with it. So cucumbers, we had fresh tomatoes, we had some refrigerator pickles we had made from cucumbers. And so that one day they sat out on the porch and ate their lunch. Oh, here's I was given an insect collection from someone. And so we were looking at the insect collection and different types of insects and talking about how the beetles or Coleoptera are the most prominent insects. They have more than anything. And so I was able to show that. That was them sorting tomatoes after they had picked them. We had one of their chores was to pick zinnias and to pick flowers. That was after a chore. This was them catching bugs or insects. Yeah. Quite a few.
I bet they did love that.
Oh, it was fun. Here's our summer sausage that we had in the freezer.
Okay.
In our beef.
Yeah, I saw that picture and I thought that stuff looked really good. So you grew cabbage?
I grew cabbage and had aphid problem and grasshopper problem. So this was the pretty picture before the grasshoppers and aphids took over. But I planted quite a few cabbage, and you can see that's kind of where the intensive planting comes into play.
Right. Yeah, they are packed in there.
Yeah.
Do you have bees, or is that honey from somewhere else?
That is broth that I had.
Broth.
No, that was kombucha that I had
Oh,
made.
okay.
From there, there's a calf, one of our calves that was
Aw.
born this past year.
I love baby calves. So cute.
They're fun. And then I think I did show a picture of the And then Colt's getting old
Oh.
enough.
Do you have, berries?
So we have blackberries on our property. We didn't get as many this year, but we have, they're wild blackberries.
Oh.
So we make, I grew up with blackberry jam. My mom would make blackberry jam.
Mm-hmm.
And so she helped me make blackberry jam last year. This year it wasn't as good. I was kind of sad.
Aphids were everywhere. They were on
Yeah.
everything this year.
Well, and that's the struggle. Oh, I was gonna show, so I planted a half an acre of corn this year, sweet corn. And I was so excited about it. And then, the grasshoppers ate all of it. And again, I don't spray, so.
How do you get rid of those grasshoppers? How do you protect from that?
It's really hard. So if you are using chemicals, you spray. I mean,
Right.
that's the best way to get rid of them. If you're not wanting to, it's really hard. One of the things I've considered is putting a purple martin, birdhouse in the middle of the pasture.
Mhm.
Another thing is I've considered putting ducks out there. The problem
Okay.
is we have coyotes.
Oh, yeah.
And we have a bobcat.
Yeah.
And then,
She doesn't mean as pets.
no, not.
They're just wandering. I just wanted to
They're
clarify
gonna-
that, yeah.
They're not pets. So we have them, and then we also have, what was the other thing? Oh, there's something called no-low bait, which is a bacteria that will, but they're not producing it right now, but that's been the best thing. They're not producing it right now. So other than that, it's really hard.
And
It
the
really is hard.
grasshoppers, the last probably 3 years for sure.
Yep.
And they're big.
And they're huge.
They're the big ones. And yeah,
Yeah.
they are everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
So
But is this some of do you have trees, fruit trees too?
That was-
Or is that?
that was, my grandma has, an apricot tree, so our whole family
Oh.
got together and picked apricots, so I got to make some apricot
Oh,
jam.
nice. Very nice.
We planted turnips this year. There's
That's a big
those are my
turnip.
chickens. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so just a different variety of breeds of chickens produce different egg colors, which is what the rainbow is what we were talking about. I definitely have a picture of them, but I don't know where it's at. Okay, so here's the farm stand refrigerator.
Okay.
That we have, our produce in, and then this, and we also have, and I didn't mention this, but there's a farmer's market hub here in Duncan, where local producers can, put produce or meat or homemade products of any kind. And so we have our meat, and there are several other farmers and ranchers that have meat. or beef.
Ability?
Yes,
The food hub.
yes,
Yeah, it's an actual food hub,
Yes.
which is only like 3 in the whole state.
yes, yeah.
And, yes, I love that. So you take yours
Yes, so
there.
we have, a freezer or
Mhm,
section that we have our meat at. there.
Okay.
So that's another opportunity that
Very
we've been
good.
given.
Very good.
Yes. This is when I first planted the hoop. This is the inside of the hoop house. When it's not as pretty as that now, but.
So are you able to keep insects away from your plants any better inside?
Yes and no. It is more of a controlled environment. The sides of the hoop house roll up, so unless you have insect netting, which I don't currently,
Okay.
you really can't, protect it. I'll be honest, a hoop house is really good for someone that doesn't work full-time.
Right.
Because a lot of it, you need to pull, a frost cover off in the mornings and put it on at night. And when
Okay.
you have a million other things going on,
Mhm,
it's
right.
hard,
Right.
but they're wonderful.
Yeah.
And they do extend the growing season, and your environment's controlled. So you can add a shade cloth, which I have one of those on
Mhm.
top, which helps keep things cooler
Mhm.
and produce more. But and you can control how much moisture your soil gets.
Mhm.
So there are good parts about stuff like that, and there are things that you have to work on.
So how, is this your first season to use the hoop house?
This is my second.
Your second, so you learned things from the first year to be able to use and I love it that you're going through this learning process yourself.
Yes,
Because I feel like you have a real understanding for how hard this is, and, I mean, you grew up, but, you know, even at the scale that you're wanting to do and how things are done, you have other options today that you didn't have when you were growing up and things like that. And so I love the experimentation part of all of it too.
yeah. Well, and I think that's the fun part about growing natural. My husband asked me one time, not very long ago, he said, why don't you just spray it? It's just easier that way. And it is, it truly is. But I asked him, I said, so when you go out and you hunt, is it easier to put corn out for the deer and just watch them walk up and eat it? Or is it really cool to have kind of a chase where you have to scout it out and see where they're moving and then plan where you're going to sit, and look and harvest that animal? And it's the same thing with it growing natural or organic. It's something that's somewhat new in a way. And it's not easy, but it's also really fun to learn.
Right.
So, and you get to teach your kids all of this.
Exactly.
And they're learning biology, and about ecosystems and all of those things. And you can ask for much better than that.
That is, yes, that is so true. Well, Emily, I just think that this has been such a great, trail talk. I mean, so many things, and I just love that it's all happening right here in Duncan.
Thank you.
I know that your time is limited, but I can just tell that you have a million ideas of things that you would like to do and incorporate. And so I hope that all those things happen, because there are so many kids in our community who would just love, I think, an experience like that. An opportunity to be on a farm, and not have to drive a long ways to be there, to go pick some fresh vegetables off of a counter in a fruit stand or a produce stand, you know, and have farm fresh eggs and just so many things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so glad Prichard Farm is a part of Duncan's community. It's so great. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how Farm Camp evolves and what it becomes next year and all of that.
Some ideas.
Yeah, I think if you did a canning class that, there might be some takers.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
I think I would love to come. I've helped my mom can a few things, but I love doing that. That is such a fun process to me. And I think that would be a fun thing to come and do. So.
My wheels are turning.
I know they are. Well, our community is so blessed to have you and your family here, and the way you're investing and reinvesting in every aspect of your life. That's a wonderful thing for the rest of us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
you're
appreciate it.
very
Thank you
welcome.
for having me today.
Oh, yes, of course. So, when we sign off, we just, say happy trails together. So you ready?
Yep.
Okay, guys, thanks for watching today. We'll be back next week with more great stories and information for you. So until then, happy trails.